Welcome, beautiful minds, to Mind Over Matter. I'm Dr. Omahani Khan, and I'm truly delighted to have you here. This is a space where we don't just learn homeopathic medicine, we explore the depths of human psychology, decode the unsaid emotions behind every symptom, and learn how to truly see our patients as complete individuals. Through compelling case studies and refined clinical insight, we aim to understand the inner world of our patients in a surprisingly short span of time. How are you all doing today? I sincerely hope you're surrounded by peace, health, and gratitude wherever you are. Now, let's dive into today's intriguing case, one that unveils the striking psychological landscape of the PLATINA patient, particularly the lesser discussed but absolutely fascinating male expression of this remedy. You might think you know PLATINA, but today, we'll peel away its glittering mask to reveal the complex, often contradictory soul beneath. Let's begin this journey of discovery, where medicine meets empathy, and science meets soul. Shall we? We all know that PLATINA is a remedy deeply rooted in ego. It is marked by arrogance, superiority, and an intense desire to dominate. It's in its very essence. But here's the truth about human nature: most of us can't fully grasp someone's true personality in the very first meeting. We don't instantly see their core qualities, their hidden emotional fabric. Yet, as homeopaths, we often don't have the luxury of time. We aren't given 3 or 4 extended sessions to slowly unravel a patient's psychological makeup before prescribing a similimum remedy. No. That's not always possible. So in this video, we are going to share something incredibly important: how to understand a patient's inner world in a short span of time. How to recognize the core emotional conflicts and match them with the right remedy, quickly, accurately, and empathetically. Because let's face it, no patient is ever going to walk into your clinic and say, "Doctor, I am arrogant. I am full of ego. I love dominating people. I enjoy belittling others. It gives me a strange sense of satisfaction. I find joy in suppressing my wife. In fact, I feel proud when I speak to her in a demeaning way." No one says that out loud. But these emotions, these psychological traits, they reveal themselves through behavior. They live in the subtle nuances, in tone, posture, and in the choices a person makes. There's a famous quote that perfectly sums this up. If you want to truly understand someone, don't just listen to what they say, observe what they do. Their actions will tell you far more than their words ever will. And today, we're going to show you exactly how to read those signs, and how to connect them with the soul of the remedy. Let's begin. Let me share with you an extraordinary case that still leaves me in awe. Imagine a patient living in Qatar, who had already sought help from some of the finest urologists and nephrologists. He had undergone numerous allopathic treatments and even spent 6 months receiving homeopathic care from another practitioner, but all in vain. His condition showed no signs of improvement. Frustrated and desperate for a solution, he reached out to me. In just a 30-minute session, I was able to discern that PLATINA was the remedy his body needed. And within an astonishingly short period of just 15 days, the results were so dramatic that even I was taken aback. This 47-year-old man had been strongly advised to undergo surgery due to a series of severe health issues. He was suffering from urinary retention, with pre-void volumes of 629 milliliters and post-void of 434 milliliters. His bladder wall had thickened to 5.4 millimeters, and he had multiple kidney stones in both kidneys, coupled with early signs of hydronephrosis. In addition, his liver was mildly enlarged due to fatty infiltration, and his gallbladder had multiple stones. It was a grim situation, and surgery seemed to be the only option. But, after just 15 days of homeopathic treatment, the transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The post-void urine volume reduced by over 60%, now down to just 156 milliliters. The bladder wall thickness decreased significantly from 5.4 millimeters to 3.7 millimeters. Hydronephrosis, which had been a concern, healed completely. His fatty liver returned to normal size, and the liver function was restored to optimal levels. Most incredibly, the kidney stones, once thought to be a permanent issue, vanished entirely. The gallbladder functioned better, and most importantly, surgery was avoided altogether. What's even more remarkable is that this recovery was achieved without the use of any allopathic medicines. The patient didn't take a single pill of allopathic treatment during this time. And it wasn't just me who was amazed. The nephrologists and urologists who had recommended surgery were left stunned. They couldn't comprehend how the severe urinary obstruction had resolved itself so rapidly. Their solution had been surgery, but we chose homeopathy, and in just 15 days, the body responded with profound healing, naturally and gently. This case serves as a powerful reminder that homeopathy isn't about slow and gradual changes, it's about subtle, precise, and deeply transformative healing. Homeopathy doesn't merely suppress symptoms, it seeks to restore balance at the very core of a person's being. And in doing so, it has the incredible ability to heal what many would call incurable. This is the remarkable power of homeopathy, gentle, yet deeply effective. So, if such astonishing results were achieved in this case, there's no doubt that the remedy worked at a profound level and, more importantly, it resonated deeply with the patient's psychological core. But let me be completely honest, this wasn't one of those cases where I immediately knew, oh, this is clearly PLATINA, and confidently prescribed it in the first go. No, not at all. This case demanded an in-depth exploration from multiple psychological and clinical angles. It was only after a detailed evaluation that I arrived at the conviction that PLATINA was the right choice. And when the remedy was finally administered, it unfolded its power in the most breathtaking way. Now, what were those multiple aspects that guided me toward PLATINA? Let me walk you through them. To begin with, we knew this was a male patient. And if there's one person who can tell you the true, unfiltered nature of a man, it's his wife. She sees beyond the facade he presents to the world. She lives with the reality that others never get to witness. What a male patient often hides in his words, his wife silently endures through his actions. So, in such cases, it becomes crucial to not only listen to the patient, but also to quietly observe and piece together what their spouse reveals, sometimes directly, sometimes between the lines. The contrasts between what the man says and what the woman feels often unveil the truth. And here's something I've noticed repeatedly in my PLATINA patients: the people around them, often the ones closest, are silently breaking. They are emotionally bleeding. You see, individuals requiring PLATINA typically carry a massively inflated sense of self. Their ego demands constant praise. They want others to bow before their wounded pride and feed their distorted self-worth. And to preserve this illusion, they wound others. Deep, emotional wounds. Deliberate or unconscious, but always piercing. When you begin to peel back these layers, when you start undressing one emotional wound after another, you often find yourself in tears. Not because the patient is crying, but because of what their actions have done to the people around them. The quiet suffering. The overlooked pain. And beneath all this cruelty lies a core trait, a narcissistic personality structure. The ego of PLATINA is not just inflated, it is armored. There's no space for shame, no trace of regret. Despite all the emotional damage they inflict, despite humiliating their partners, belittling their loved ones, they walk around feeling completely justified, even proud. And that's the most startling part, the utter absence of guilt. There's no remorse like, did I do the right thing, or maybe I should apologize. No. Not in PLATINA cases. Despite the emotional destruction they leave behind, they continue to feel grand, righteous, and emotionally untouched. And this is why prescribing PLATINA is not about the symptoms alone. It's about reading the unspoken language of pain. The pain they inflict and the pleasure they feel in control. And when you finally understand that, the remedy speaks. And it heals, not just the patient, but everything that surrounds them. Now take this male patient, for instance. The weight of his ego, his dominating nature, you won't always witness it directly through his own words, but you will most certainly see its imprint on his wife. It will reflect in her body language, in the hesitation in her speech, in the silences between her sentences. She may not come forward and tell you outright, "Doctor, he mistreats me," but if you observe closely, her entire being will speak volumes. And as a physician who sees beyond symptoms, who listens beyond words, you have to be attuned to that unspoken cry for help. Women, especially wives, rarely express their emotional suffering directly, particularly when it's rooted in power imbalance or subtle emotional domination. But here's the divine brilliance of the female body, designed with such intricate intelligence by God, it holds within it an inbuilt alarm system. If a woman doesn't feel emotionally or psychologically safe around a man, this inner system starts to scream from within. Her nervous system lights up like an emergency siren, sending unmistakable sensations that something is not right. And while she may try to stay composed, her body betrays her discomfort. That very alarm translates into micro-expressions, restless postures, guarded glances, a clenched jaw, a sudden withdrawal in voice or presence. These are not random, they are sacred signals from the nervous system. Because when a woman truly feels mentally and emotionally safe around a man, her entire demeanor softens. She becomes expressive, relaxed, and open. But when that safety is absent, the difference is almost striking. Her behavior, tone, and energy take on a cautious, restrained quality. And once you learn to read this, you can distinguish between the two in seconds. Her body tells the truth long before her words ever do. When I first took this patient's wife's case, 2 to 3 months back, something immediately caught my attention. She would laugh excessively, a laugh that wasn't rooted in joy. It was a nervous laugh, a fragile mask trying to portray happiness, while desperately concealing the storm of pain brewing inside her. It wasn't just fake, it was loud, haunting, and echoed with silent suffering. Deep down, I felt a heaviness for her. She was clearly covering up something terrible behind that forced smile. I prescribed her conium, and she responded beautifully. Her healing confirmed what I sensed, that laugh wasn't light, it was layered with wounds. Later, when I began the case of her husband, the PLATINA patient, it was over a conference call with both him and his wife present. As he started describing his complaints, I carefully listened for 30 minutes. What emerged clearly was his subtle yet firm expectation that everyone should treat him differently, uniquely. He demanded that his ego be fed constantly, that his presence be honored above others. Why am I emphasizing this? Because he consistently created unnecessary problems out of nothing. He would say things like, "You've sent the medicines offline, but I want a scan prescription online," or "You didn't write the medicine names clearly, please rewrite it," or "Change the format, it looks like a certificate," or even, "Mention the exact cost of the medicines purchased." He kept overanalyzing every detail, making the simplest process painfully complicated. And let me tell you something important, in life, stay away from those who make simple things difficult for others. They are not good human beings. A beautiful soul is one who eases the burdens of others. But someone who deliberately adds confusion to clarity, that's a red flag. That's a person who drains peace. Now let me share something deeper about this man's nature. He ruled his household like a dictator. I had never in my life heard of a husband locking kitchen cabinets and drawers. But this man did. Every morning, his wife wasn't allowed to enter the kitchen until he woke up and unlocked everything himself. Only after that would he instruct her what to cook, and only the specific quantities would be taken out. She had no freedom even in the most basic routines of life. What can one call this level of control other than sheer madness? But it doesn't end there. Through such actions, he wasn't just oppressing his wife, he was hurting her parents too. Treating their daughter as a mere object, talking down to her, disrespecting her dignity, it was deeply painful to witness. All this wasn't just about control, it was about reducing someone else to feel powerful. And behind that behavior stood a towering ego, a narcissistic core, that demanded worship and obedience, no matter the emotional cost to those around him. During case taking, the patient said, "Doctor, I can't bear to see anyone in pain. My nature is extremely soft. Whenever someone asks me for help, I never refuse. Even if I don't have the resources, I go out of my way to arrange them and assist." I sat back, relaxed, silently observing, trying to decode what kind of impression he was attempting to imprint on me. Are you all understanding this? When someone deliberately emphasizes how charitable they are, how kind-hearted and generous they've always been, you must pause and reflect, what is this person really trying to project about their image? Here, this man was clearly trying to position himself as a noble soul. He wanted to be seen as the epitome of goodness, of humility, of virtue. He was constructing an identity. I am noble, I am a genuinely good person, I am down to earth. Then came another classic statement. He said, I admire my mother the most, we have a deep emotional connection. But within moments, he took a complete U-turn and added, she used to tell me, don't eat at that house, they belong to a lower caste. But I still went and ate at their place. Again, trying to reinforce, see how noble I am. I rose above social divisions. This was another attempt to earn admiration, to shine his image in gold. And then came something utterly foolish. Since we were on a conference call and his wife was present, he suddenly said, ask her yourself, have I ever raised my hand on her? Have I ever hit her? Have I ever abused her? That very moment, I froze. The absurdity of his words struck me. It felt like someone proudly declaring they brought books and pens while joining school, as if that's a heroic feat. Isn't it obvious that if you're going to school, you'll carry a bag with books? No one expects you to carry a cricket bat, a volleyball, and a hockey stick daily. Likewise, in a marriage, physical abuse should never even be a question. The absence of violence isn't a favor, it's the bare minimum. Yet here he was, seeking applause simply for not hitting his wife. But he failed to realize he was emotionally tormenting her every single day. He didn't need to raise his hand, his words, control, and suffocating dominance were enough to break her spirit. The most striking aspect of this case is that unlike physical abuse, which shakes your soul and leaves your being trembling, this kind of psychological oppression evokes a different reaction. It stirs deep anger within you. An ache of helplessness, because you see the victim suffering silently, and all you can do is counsel them, guide them. You wish you could do more. Because the bruises here are invisible, but they run far deeper. Absolutely no sense of shame, just sheer shamelessness. At moments, I truly wondered, could this be a Hayao case? There was a certain nakedness in his energy, a bizarre exposure that felt unsettling. During case-taking, he casually declared, Doctor, even I do couple counseling. That immediately caught my attention since he is an engineer by profession. I asked him to elaborate, what exactly do you say to resolve conflicts between couples? And without a flicker of hesitation, he shamelessly started talking about sexuality in such a crude, distasteful manner that it made me deeply uncomfortable. I could sense his wife was equally disturbed. It was the classic Hayao state, raw, absurd, vulgar in expression, with no boundaries. It felt pathetic. Now shifting to her case-taking, she revealed something haunting. She is not allowed to step out of the house. Nothing of her personal choice is permitted within those walls. I casually asked her which ice cream flavor she likes, just to lighten the mood. She hesitated and said, only when my husband feels like it, he orders ice cream. I can't say that I want one or express which flavor I like. We have to eat what he likes. And that's where the truth began to unfold. Abuse is not just about being hit. Abuse is not limited to physical wounds that show. Mental abuse is far more corrosive, far more dangerous. And to identify it, one must look very closely. You have to take the case with a deep lens of observation because mental scars don't bleed, they stay buried under forced smiles and scripted words. The crux of this case was simple. The man desperately wanted to portray himself as a noble human being. But in reality, it was nothing more than a delusion, a fantasy he had created and started believing. His nobility was fake, an act, and how did I realize this? By understanding his wife. This case taught me something crucial. Whenever you're taking the case of a male patient, you must speak to his wife as well. Observe her minutely. Her dressing sense. The way she speaks. Her confidence level. Is she genuinely happy or hiding behind a fake smile? You must pay attention to every detail because more often than not, she is living under the shadow of the man. And why did I say under? Let's understand this. Masculine energy is naturally associated with action, protection, and direction. Men feel satisfaction when they fulfill these roles. On the other hand, feminine energy is all about nurturing, receiving, intuition, and flow, a soft, receptive force. When evaluating a relationship, we must examine how each individual is using their energy. Are they cherishing it or exploiting it? Platina carries this peculiar need to be seen and treated differently. The desire to be recognized in a grand, luxurious, superior way. And in doing so, such individuals often degrade others without the slightest pinch of guilt. That's when you realize, what they're trying to present as something vast, unique, and precious, is actually nothing but a shallow container. A shiny piece of metal, hollow from within. A small person with no depth. You don't feel any respect for such individuals. In fact, interacting with them feels awkward and exhausting. When you deal with such patients, they trigger a strange kind of fear within you. Their aura carries a heaviness that seeps into your consciousness, making you feel you must treat them well, carefully, even though they make you uncomfortable. There's a disturbing energy around them. Spending time in their presence is unpleasant. These people often consider themselves extremely intelligent, but emotionally, they're utterly dumb. They lack basic manners. They are incapable of sensing what another person feels. That's exactly why this kind of case fits perfectly into the narcissistic personality spectrum. Where the patient constantly plays the victim while oppressing others, where they inflict pain without guilt, where cruelty comes disguised as nobility. These truths only unfold when you study Platina deeply. The patient was not what he claimed to be. What he tried to show was a grand illusion. What he really was, deep down, was far worse. And he found joy and pride in this delusional image he created for himself. In truth, he was far too small as a person, someone who suppresses women, controls them, disrespects them, makes them feel dirty, unsafe. This case taught us something vital: you can never prescribe based on what you merely see. Never rely on the patient's words alone. Watch what they're doing. Are they creating harmony or sowing disharmony in their surroundings? Their actions reveal more than their speech ever can. Mind, delusion, that everything in the room is diminished, while she is tall and elevated. Let us now deeply understand this rubric. When a patient walks into your cabin, their aura itself begins to dictate the emotional tone. You, as a sensitive homeopath, begin to feel that everyone else in the room is somehow belittled, made small and insignificant. And by room, we mean your consultation space, whether physical or virtual. For instance, during a conference call where 3 of us were present, the patient addressed us with such condescension, with an unmistakable tone of contempt. Why does he do this? Because through that very contempt, through that intense disrespect and covert rudeness, he elevates himself. It is his way of establishing dominance, of making himself appear superior and towering. The others must feel small in order for him to feel tall. This is exactly how patients with such pathology communicate their delusion. They create the feeling of shrinkage around them. It's not about literal height, but about energetic presence. A sharp homeopath must be deeply sensitive to these subtle cues. These small gestures, tones, and behavioral choices are not to be dismissed. They are breadcrumbs to the inner state of the patient. Your role is to perceive, to feel, and to analyze. Now let us bring in the doctrine of signature. A very powerful question arises here: why are these metals, like platinum, so expensive? The answer lies not just in their rarity but in their extraction process. The journey of platina from the depths of the earth to the surface is not ordinary. It is laborious, tedious, and extremely costly. To extract just a single ounce of platinum, 250 tons of ore, raw waste material, must be mined. That speaks volumes. In fact, if you were to gather all the platinum ever extracted in the history of the world, it still wouldn't be enough to fill a small living room. That is how rare and precious it is. And that rarity directly mirrors the patient's internal state. You start to understand how extraordinarily rigid and unyielding their nature is, just as hard to access as the metal itself. When you begin to interact with such patients, it doesn't take long before you realize how difficult they must be to live with. You feel, with deep empathy, the weight their spouse must have carried through the years. You begin to intuitively understand the wife's suffering, her mental state, her daily battles, and wonder how she is surviving such psychological oppression. You begin to trace the miasm that could be silently evolving within her under such prolonged emotional abuse. These are not just clinical observations, they affect you as a human being. You begin to feel a subtle but intense anger rising within you, a righteous discomfort triggered by the patient's contemptuous nature. And so, in this way, this particular patient revealed the deeper layers of the PLATINA state to us. It was not through what he said, but through how he made us feel, how he shrunk the room to appear grand. That was the real lesson. I hope this journey into the psyche of the PLATINA state was both enlightening and enriching for all of you. Thank you for joining in this reflective learning experience. See you all in next case learning session.
अल्लाह ताला ने बीवी के रिश्ते को, बीवी शौहर के रिश्ते को बहुत उम्दगी के साथ, इख्तिसार के साथ बयान किया, जिसमें 3 बातें अल्लाह ने बयान की। अल्लाह ताला ने फरमाया, वमिन आयातिही अन खलक़ लकुम मिन अनफुसिकुम अज़वाजन लितस्कुनु इलैहा। अल्लाह की निशानियों में से है कि उसने तुम्हारे लिए तुम्ही में से जोड़े बनाए, तुम्ही में से तुम्हारे लिए बीवियां बनाई जोड़े के तौर पर, लितस्कुनु इलैहा, ताकि तुम अपनी बीवियों से सुकून हासिल करो। कुरान ने बीवी को शौहर के लिए मुसीबत और बला करार नहीं दिया है, बल्कि कुरान ने बताया कि तुम्हारे लिए सुकून का जरिया है। एक दीनदार समझदार बीवी शौहर के लिए सुकून का जरिया होती है, आंखों की ठंडक होती है। कुरान ने बतौर ऐब औरत को पेश नहीं किया है, बतौर मुसीबत और अजाब पेश नहीं किया है। कुरान ने बताया कि वो तस्कीन है, उसके अंदर सुकून मिलता है, यानी उसकी शख्सियत इतनी उम्दा होती है कि उससे सुकून खूबसूरती से मिलता है, सुकून शख्सियत से मिलता है, पर्सनैलिटी से मिलता है, कि औरत का वजूद ही मर्द के लिए सुकून का जरिया है। कितनी बड़ी, यानी औरत के लिए कितनी बड़ी इज्जत की बात है कुरान में। लितस्कुनु इलैहा, इस सारी दुनिया में उसको कहीं सुकून मिलने वाला नहीं है, उसको सुकून कहाँ मिलेगा? बीवी के पास। लितस्कुनु इलैहा वजअल बैनकुम मवद्दतन व रहमा, और अल्लाह ताला ने इन दोनों के दरमियान, बीवी शौहर के दरमियान मवद्दत और रहमत का रिश्ता रखा। मवद्दत मोहब्बत और रहमत दोनों अलग हैं। मोहब्बत किसी की तरफ दिल की रग़बत का होना, उसको पसंद करके उसकी चाहत होना, उसकी क़ुर्बत, उसकी सोहबत की तलब अंदर होना, उसको देखकर खुशी होना, उसकी सोहबत में खुशी होना, सारे मोहब्बत के मरासिम हैं। और उसकी तकलीफ में, उसकी कमियों पर, उसकी कमजोरी पर उस पर रहम आना, उसकी कमजोरियों पर दिल में रहमत का पैदा होना, उसकी तकलीफ पर दिल में उस पर रहम आना। तो ये मोहब्बत और रहमत का रिश्ता दोनों के दरमियान रखा, मर्द औरत के लिए, औरत शौहर के लिए, बीवी शौहर के लिए और शौहर बीवी के लिए, कि एक दूसरे से मोहब्बत करने वाले और एक दूसरे पर रहम करने वाले, ये रिलेशन अल्लाह ने रखा। और आज भी देखने मिलता है। बुढ़ापे में बाज़ औक़ात सब बच्चे पढ़ लिख के डॉक्टर इंजीनियर बन के सब चले जाते, कोई अमेरिका कोई अफ्रीका, अब ये दोनों बच जाते, दोनों साथ में रहते हैं। वो बीवी भी एकदम बूढ़ी हो जाती, शौहर भी एकदम बूढ़ा रहता है, लेकिन वो भी एकदम स्लो मोशन में जाके उसके लिए पानी लेकर आती बराबर। जब खांसने लगता है, उठती है, बराबर जाके उसके लिए मेरा शौहर है, उसके लिए जाके किसी तरह से अकेले पानी लाके उसको देती है। ये क्या है? इतने बुढ़ापे में वो खुद बीमारियों में होती है, वो खुद कमजोरी में होती है, लेकिन खिदमत करती है। शौहर भी हाँ एकदम कछुए की तरह जाके उसके लिए जो उसकी पसंद की मिठाई फल है वो जाके दुकान से लेकर आता है, मगर की नमाज पढ़ के घर पे चुपचाप उसको फल लाके घर में देता है, लिखा। तो ये जो रिश्ता है बीवी का शौहर का, बुढ़ापे तक बाकी रहता है, बुढ़ापे तक बाकी रहता है। और एक दूसरे के दुख दर्द में दोनों साथ में आते हैं। बीवी शौहर की दवा याद रखती है, शौहर बीवी की दवा याद रखता है, खाई दवा, हाँ खाई, ठीक है। तो एक दूसरे का साथ देते हैं, ये रिश्ता अल्लाह ने बनाया है। और ये पहला रिश्ता है। गौर करने की बात यह है, हमारे लिए तो माँ पहला रिश्ता है हमारा, कि माँ के पेट में पहले हम बाप माँ हमारे साथ थे, उनके जरिए से हम वजूद में आए। लेकिन पहला इंसान जब अल्लाह ने पैदा किया तो सबसे पहले उसको किस रिश्ते में बांधा? शौहर बीवी। पहला रिश्ता दुनिया में जब इंसान का पैदा हुआ, पहले इंसान का, तो ये वो रिश्ता था कि जिसमें हजरत आदम और उनकी बीवी हजरत हवा को अल्लाह ताला ने बांधा। ये पहला बंधन, पहला रिलेशन, पहला रिश्ता था शौहर बीवी का। इससे पता चलता है कि कितना इंपॉर्टेंट रिश्ता है और ये बाकी रहता है जिंदगी भर। तो अगर समझदार हो तो ये रिश्ता उनके लिए दुनिया की जन्नत बनता है, नहीं तो दुनिया की जहन्नम बनता। तो ये रिश्ता जो है, ये सूरह रूम में अल्लाह ने बयान किया कि तीन चीजें बयान की कि तुम्हें तुम्हारी ही जिन से जोड़ा बनाया, इंसान के लिए इंसान, और उनमें तुम्हारे लिए सुकून रखा। बीवी को सुकून बनाया शौहर के लिए, और अगर शौहर भी दीनदार हो तो बीवी से सुकून पाती है, उसके लिए एक धूप में एक छत की तरह होता है। और इसी तरह से दोनों के दरमियान जो रिश्ता बताया वो कौन सा रिश्ता है? मवद्दतन व रहमा, मोहब्बत और रहमत का। वेस्टर्न जो भी मीडिया या जो भी लिटरेचर है वो बस इस्लाम में बीवी शौहर के रिलेशन को सिर्फ जिनसी एतबार से पेश करता है। तुम्हारा निकाह क्या है? बस बच्चे पैदा करो। इस्लाम तुमको ऐसे ही बताता है, वो बच्चा पैदा करने की मशीन है, बस ऐसा नहीं है। आप इस आयत को देखिए, कितने बेहतरीन उसलूब में अल्लाह ताला ने बताया कि बीवी शौहर के लिए सुकून का जरिया है, और दोनों के दरमियान जो रिश्ता है वो मोहब्बत और रहमत का है। यानी ऐसा रिश्ता नहीं है कि जब तक कि दोनों खुशी के हालात हैं साथ में हैं, और जब तकलीफ आ जाए तो अलग हो जाएंगे, नहीं। वो हर हाल में एक दूसरे से मोहब्बत करते हैं और एक दूसरे पर उसकी तकलीफ में रहम करते हैं। एक दूसरे के लिए उनके दिल में न सिर्फ मोहब्बत होती है बल्कि एक दूसरे के लिए क्या होती है? रहमत भी होती है, उस पर रहम भी आता है। बीवी को माँ बाप की याद आ रही, रो रही, शौहर देख के उस पर रहम करता है। शौहर बिजनेस में उसका लॉस हो गया, टेंशन में सर पकड़ के बैठा हुआ है दोनों हाथों से, बीवी को देख के रहम आता है, चुपचाप उसके लिए जाके कुछ बना के लाती है, खाएंगे कुछ, चाय पियेंगे, कुछ करूँ आपके लिए। ये जो एक दूसरे के दुख दर्द में काम आना, ये रिश्ता इस्लाम ने बताया। मोहब्बत खुशी के हालात में एक दूसरे को चाहने वाले, हर हाल में एक दूसरे से मोहब्बत करने वाले, लेकिन इसी के साथ साथ एक दूसरे पर रहम भी करने वाले, और सुकून का रिश्ता दोनों के दरमियान कि एक दूसरे से तस्कीन मिलती है। लेकिन औरत को खुसूसी तौर पर इसलिए बयान किया कि मर्द में कदर सख्ती होती है, थोड़ा सा वो हाँ जंगली शेर होता है, तो उसका काम क्या होता है? जंगल में जाके उसके लिए कुछ ढूंढ के लाना। तो दुनिया के सहरा में, दुनिया के जंगल में वो घूम भटक के कुछ तो लेके आता, उसके अंदर थोड़ा सा एक मजबूती होती है। लेकिन औरत कैसी होती है? उसके अंदर नरमी होती है। इसीलिए बच्चों को भी किसके हवाले किया गया है? औरत के, क्योंकि बच्चों को आज से रिसर्च बता रही कि बच्चों को शुरुआत की उम्र में टेंडरनेस की, कंपैशन की, एम्पैथी की, सिंपैथी की, जितने भी वर्ड आप उसके लिए इस्तेमाल करें, जरूरत होती है। ऐसे वक्त में बच्चों को संभालने में ऐसा शख्स होना चाहिए जिसमें शफकत गालिब हो। इसके लिए कोई बहुत आपको बहुत बड़ा سائنس دیکھنے کی ضرورت نہیں ہے، ایک موٹی عقل والا آدمی بھی جانتا ہے کہ عورت کی بچوں پر شفقت باپ کے مقابلے میں کہیں زیادہ ہوتی ہے. اور آج اس کی وجہ سے کئی عورتیں مغرب میں اپنے کریئر سیکریفائز کر کے بچوں کی تربیت اور ان کی نگرانی کے لیے اپنا وقت دے رہی ہیں، اور ان کے انٹرویوز ہو رہے ہیں، ان کو ایک دم ہائی لائٹ کیا جا رہا ہے، کتنی بڑی قربانی دی اس عورت نے اپنی فیملی کے لیے، اپنے بچوں کے لیے، یہ ہیرو ہے. اور مسلمان عورتیں اگر کریں تو کیسی جاہل عورت ہے، کیسا سماج ان کا جاہلیت والا ہے، دیکھو ان کو کیسا اتنا اچھا ترقی کا راستہ چھڑا کے گھر پہ بٹھا دیا. یہ دنیا ہے، یہ میڈیا ہے، جو چاہے اس کو وائٹ کو بلیک کر دے، بلیک کو وائٹ کر دے، اچھے کو برا بنا دے، برے کو اچھا بنا دے. تو عورت میں وہ شفقت ہوتی ہے، اس میں ایک نرمی ہوتی ہے. اس نرمی سے آپ دیکھیے نبی کریم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم، آپ اپنی بیوی کے پاس گئے، آپ کو تسکین کس نے دی؟ نبوت ملی، آپ کو اتنا بڑا شرف اللہ کی طرف سے ملا، لیکن جبریل آ کے کیسا کیا آپ کو؟ تبائے پڑھ اقرا، ایک بار، دو بار، تین بار، اقرا بسم ربک الذی خلق، پوری وحی نازل ہوئی. ڈرے ڈرے، سہمے سہمے، گھبرائے گھبرائے آپ آئے، زملونی دثرونی، مجھے اڑا دو کچھ. کس کے پاس آئے؟ چچا کے پاس گئے، بیوی کے پاس آئے. اتنا کلوز ریلیشن تھا کہ بیوی سے اس سچویشن کو جو میرے ساتھ ہوا ہے شیئر کروں. آپ نے بیوی سے بتایا، آپ کو تسکین اور حوصلہ کس نے دیا؟ بیوی نے. بیوی نے حوصلہ. آپ اللہ آپ کو لا یخزیک اللہ ابدا، اللہ تعالیٰ آپ کو رسوا نہیں کرے گا، آپ ایسے ہیں ایسے ہیں ایسے ہیں. اتنی بڑی شخصیت نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی، آپ کو حوصلہ دینے والی ایک عورت تھی، سارے نبیوں کے سردار. ایسے وقت میں جب ابتداء وحی میں پہلی وحی پر آپ گھبرائے ہوئے تھے، انی خشیت علی نفسی، مجھے اپنی جان کا خوف ہے، اتنا زور سے دبایا کہ جان نکل جائے گی، میرا دم نکل جائے گا، مجھے اپنی جان کا خوف ہے. تو اس وقت میں رسول اکرم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کو ہمت اور حوصلہ دینے والی عورت تھی. اتنی سمجھداری اس عورت میں تھی، اس خاتون میں تھی کہ آپ کو صحیح الفاظ میں بتایا ایسا نہیں ہوگا، اللہ آپ کو ضائع نہیں کرے گا، کیونکہ آپ اچھے انسان ہیں، اچھے انسان کو اللہ ضائع نہیں کرتا ہے. تو یہاں پر آپ دیکھیے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے یہ رشتہ بتایا. تو مغرب جو بالکل یعنی جنسی اعتبار سے، صرف سیکشوئل اعتبار سے ریلیشن شپ اسلام کی بیوی شوہر کی پیش کرتا ہے، وہ غلط ہے. قرآن کی ان آیات کا آپ کیا کریں گے جس میں بتایا گیا ہے کہ بیوی شوہر کا رشتہ ایسا ہوتا ہے؟ تو تین الفاظ یہاں پر آئے: سکون، مودت یعنی محبت، اور تیسرا رحمت. یہ بنیاد ہے ریلیشن شپ کی بیوی شوہر کی. ان کی زندگی میں سکون ہو، ان کا رشتہ سکون والا ہو، اور ان کا رشتہ محبت والا ہو، اور ان کا رشتہ رحمت والا ہو. یہ جو ہے بیوی شوہر کے رشتے کو اللہ تعالیٰ نے سراسی سورہ روم کی آیت نمبر 21 میں بیان کیا ہے. مزید یہ کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے اور اسلام میں بیوی اور شوہر دونوں کے لیے سیادت ہے، لیڈرشپ جس کو آپ کہتے ہیں. سید کا معنی ہوتا ہے سردار. تو سرداری جہاں اللہ نے مرد کو دی ہے، عورت کو بھی دی، لیکن سبارڈینیشن کے ساتھ ہے. اللہ کے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم فرماتے ہیں کل نفس من بنی آدم سید، بنی آدم میں سے ہر شخص سردار ہے، سید ہے. والرجل سید اہلہ، آدمی اپنے پورے گھر والوں پر ہیڈ ہے، سردار ہے. اور والمرأۃ سیدۃ بیتہا، اور عورت بھی سردار ہے اپنے گھر پر. تو جب شوہر گھر میں نہیں ہوگا تو گورنمنٹ کون چلائے گا؟ ویسے بعض گھروں کا حال، بلکہ بہت سے گھروں کا حال ہے کہ وہ ہو بھی تو گورنمنٹ کو چلاتا ہے. اور اس لیے بات ہوتا ہے کون کس کا ہے تو ہوم منسٹری سے کھولا ہے. ہاں، بہت سارے گھروں میں بیوی کی حکمرانی ہوتی ہے. اسلامی نظام ایسا ہے، خاندان کا نظام ایسا ہے کہ گھر کے اوپر ذمہ دار کون ہوگا؟ بڑا شوہر. لیکن کبھی وہ گھر میں رہتا، کبھی نہیں رہتا ہے. تو گھر کا بڑا حصہ عورت سنبھالتی ہے، اور وہ وہاں پر سید ہوگی، گھر پر اور بچوں پر. بچوں کو خصوصی طور پر عورت کے حوالے کیا گیا ہے. یہ اتنی بڑی رسپانسبلٹی ہے جو عورت کو دی گئی ہے، یہ اس کا شرف ہے. بدقسمتی سے عورت اس کو بوجھ سمجھتی ہے، اگلی نسل اس کے حوالے کی گئی، اتنا اس کا رلائے کیا گیا، اتنا اس کو ایلیجیبل مانا گیا. سوچیے آپ، کبھی کبھی کیا ہوتا ہے، عزت دیے تو انسان اس کو الٹا سمجھتا ہے، میرے سر پہ بوجھ رہتے ہیں. عورت کی ذمہ داری دی گئی، یہ جو بچے ہیں یہ سنبھالنے کی ذمہ داری تمہاری ہے، کیونکہ یہی کل کو جا کے سماج میں کوئی ڈاکٹر، کوئی انجینئر، کوئی عالم اور کوئی سائنٹسٹ اور جانے کیا بنے گا. لیکن ان کو اچھا انسان بنانے کی ذمہ داری تمہاری پر ہے. اور یہ ریسرچ ہے کہ پہلے سالوں میں بچے کو شفقت کی بہت زیادہ ضرورت ہوتی ہے، نہیں تو وہ ڈپریشن یا انفیریورٹی کمپلیکس میں، یا اسی طرح سے بعد میں جا کے بارڈر لائن پرسنالٹی ڈس آرڈر، یا اسی طرح سے نارسسٹک پرسنالٹی ڈس آرڈر، اور بہت سارے ڈس آرڈر پیدا ہو جاتے ہیں جو آپ کو سائیکالوجسٹ بتا سکتا ہے کہ اس کو نیگلیکٹ اگر ملتا ہے، دھیان نہیں دیا اس کے اوپر، تو بعد میں پرابلمس اس میں پیدا ہوتے ہیں. اس کو ٹراما سے گزارا جائے، اگر بہت زیادہ تکلیف اس کو ہو، ڈرایا دھمکایا جائے، تو بعد میں جا کے اس کی ذہنی حالت خراب ہو جاتی ہے. ADHD اور اس طرح کے پرابلمس کو پیدا ہو جاتے ہیں. تو گھبراہٹ اور اس طرح کے کئی مسائل پیدا ہوتے ہیں اس میں. تو اس کے لیے اس کو پہلے سالوں میں شفقت کی ضرورت ہوتی ہے. اللہ تعالیٰ نے تقسیم کی ہے، مرد سردار رہے گا، اور عورت اس کی ماتحتی میں وہ بھی سردار ہے، وہ بھی سردار، وہ کچھ نہیں ایسا نہیں، وہ بھی اتھارٹی ہے، لیکن سبارڈینیشن ہے، شوہر کی ماتحتی ہے. تو یہ بات ابن سنی نے اپنی کتاب عمل اليوم واللیل میں ذکر کی، اور یہ بہت اہم حدیث ہے اور صحیح حدیث ہے. صحیح الجامع الصغیر حدیث نمبر 4565.